We're going to go into the next chapter, sort of more complex animation. I think some of you may have already covered some of the complex animation. So we're going to do some basic animation first, and then I'm going to talk about why would you want to nest animation or nest movies within movies. So I'm going to take a simple face as starters. So let's create an oval, and I'll call this face. And let's change the color of this. Let's just make it a bit different. Okay, now I'm going to convert this into a movie, and I'll call this face. I'm going to double click onto this. When we double click onto it, you will see we actually go into scene 1. We double click onto, we're in face now. Now we have that same sort of skin that we had, so I'm going to call this layer skin, and I'm going to create an eye. And I'll just move, I could do it at the side, I could just lock this layer so I don't accidentally draw over that. And I'm going to have this as a white background. And I'll do another oval, I'll just do another eye. So we could work on something like an alien if we want to. So now we have an eye. I'm going to convert this into another movie clip. So I'm going to convert to symbol, and I'm going to call it the eyeball. I'll just call it the eye. Double click onto that. Now this time we're actually in the eye itself. I'm going to rename that layer to eye and create another layer. So what I'm actually doing is I keep double clicking and nesting movies within movies. Now within this eye movie, I'm going to create the eyeball. So I'll make this, once again, it's going to be oval. And I'm going to make this kind of a gray color, round. Now if we go back to our movie, now I can move everything around. So I have the main symbol. If I double click onto that, I have the eye which I can reposition. So I could have this eye moving around if I want to. Now within the eye, I could also have the eyeball moving, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to have this eyeball move within this socket, this white socket. So I'm going to select both the layers, so I'm going to call this the ball. I'm going to select both these layers, and I'm going to do this to around 50 frames, stretch it out to 50 frames. So the only thing I want to tween at this stage is just this black circle. I'm going to lock the eye. It's always a good idea to lock it. Go to zoom in, and I'm going to insert a keyframe there. Insert keyframe, and I'm going to create a motion tween. And I'm just going to move it across and just have it slide across. And I'll do this here too, I'll just move it there. Now do the same thing on the other side so the ball comes back. Create motion tween, okay, and move it across. And I could have it sort of go around if I want to. So now if we play this, you'll see it just keeps cycling around. Now if we play the movie itself, so this eyeball will just keep going around. Now I could have an eyelid really, if I wanted to. So I'm going to create an eyelid on top of that. So I have this this alien, which is a face, and now I have this eyeball. Now I want something to kind of slide up and down on that eye, so giving it the effect it's an eyelid. I could use a mask if I want to. Remember, we have used masks before. But I'm going to create another animation within that. So I'm going to create another layer, call it the eyelid. And I'm just going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to make sure it's kind of the same color to the skin. I think that is the same color. I'm just going to check what the color is. So yes, that is the color. Let's have a look. I locked it, so let me just unlock it. Okay. So now I'm going to create another rectangle with the same skin color, and I'm going to draw it here. Okay. And I can actually change it, sort of create slight curvature there if I wanted to make it look more like an eyelid. Now if we go back to the main scene, we don't see that square or that rectangle I created. So now I want that to go up and down, giving it the effect that it is an eyelid. So I'm going to, once again, insert maybe a keyframe here and have it come down. So I'm going to have it come down up to around there. And I'll just move this down. Then I'll have it come back up again. Create motion tween again. So now it's going to come back up. So now if we play this, you will see, and yes, you can see a bit of that corner on the top left, so we may need to have to clean that up. So right there, maybe bring it down. So I've quickly actually created that. So now you could see how we've actually nested. Maybe we've created kind of an eyelid there, and the eyeball's also moving. And we could do other things, we could create a mouth there. We could now also have this guy moving up and down. So we can rescale this because I had this as a nested, as a symbol itself. So I'm going to free transform. I could scale it down. So you can do all kinds of things, and now I can start creating the body if I want to. And you can have the body move. So here we have this face. Now I could have a background. I'm going to create a background. And I'll just change that to kind of a green type of color. And of course we can also have the main tweening here if you want an object to be moving around or doing all kinds of things. So that's how easy it is to create animation in that sense. So when you're planning your movie clip, think about what objects are going to be independent and what are going to be tied in with its parent. And remember, the library gives you access to all the objects you've created. And you can always drag and drop and create another one. So I created the face. So I could have multiple faces on the stage here. If I go to my library, I could drag and drop, and I could place that here. Yes, they're going to animate at the same time, but at least you got two objects. Now, if I want to have this slightly different to the other objects, I would have to duplicate it. Remember how you duplicate it? You right-click, and then you would duplicate it. Duplicate symbol. You give it a name, face 2. Now if we go into phase 2, I could change the color of this skin if I want to. And then maybe make it a bit more yellower. And same thing with the lid. The eyelid, I can make it slightly different color. Now we have two aliens of different colors. Okay, I need to change that. So yes, I need to go back into the lid and change it there. And what's happened here is you probably realize that the lid's also changed because I have to duplicate it. So I would have to duplicate any movie clip you create. So this has to also be duplicated each time you copy it. So I'm going to duplicate that and call it I0. And I could change the color of that eyelid to back to what? Oh, let me go back. Duplicate that. See, duplicate symbol, so call it lid 0, and now I can change the color of that. which is fine. So I have to change the color of this now. Okay, there. Now if we play it, we'll have two independent. And yes, I need to go back and change the color of this lid. So you can see how easy it is. So now working on that, let's delete that. Other things you can do, you can have shadows. So I could have this particular face or this alien. I want this alien to kind of move across. So I'm going to have, let's rename this layer to floor. And I want this alien to just slide across. So I'm going to have on the face, I'm going to right click, create motion tween, and I'm just going to have it go across. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Now if we play that, it just goes across. To make it a bit more interesting, what you can do is you can copy those frames and you can paste them. So once again, all you do is you select all the frames, right click, copy frames, and now I'm going to paste them. Paste frames. And ignore that last section, Flash does do that. So you can actually take this block off. Let's actually just slide it in. Okay. Okay, see if it's on the right track. I just want to see if they're both synced. Okay, so this, I'm going to hide that. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to create a shadow. At the bottom, you could do that. So I'm going to move this down, and I forgot how many times I moved it down, so but I'm just going to make sure it's on a straight line. Okay, and now I can scale this, I can duplicate this. Remember, you have to duplicate it. Duplicate symbol, say I'm going to call it shadow, and I'm going to now free transform. And I'll just do that for the sake of it. I'll do it on this side too. So we have now, you can see where I'm going to get to. So there's going to be kind of a shadow or a blur effect that's going to follow that. So now you can go to your filters and you can introduce the blur effect if you want to. Or you could even have a glow. You could change the color, the opacity. So I'll just introduce a blur across the board. So now we have something kind of following that. And you can see when the eye is moving, there is some animation occurring here. Okay, one thing I did not do, so when you actually, I should have flipped this. What I should have done was, I should have made it like that. Same thing here. You need to flip it. And then you would have it give more of a reflection. And to make it look even better, I could say, you know, this is kind of like the water or something. And make this a bit more alpha. So I could say, you know, let's have the alpha down on this. Bring it down. And same thing, we'll have to do the same thing with the eyeball. So we have to duplicate that. It's actually, the alpha is actually transforming from one point to the other. So I may need to check that the alpha on both ends is, say, 40%. Same thing on this side. It's going to be 40%. Okay, there. So small things like that do make a big difference. Any questions on that? So it's all about planning. you know all about sketching. So when you create your animation, you need to have a good idea how everything is going to pan out. You really cannot do it on the fly, what I've just done. So I could have a spaceship that could fly in. Suddenly, you know, this guy could bounce into it, and off they go. Okay, I'm going to move on to that. Let's see. Okay, this is an example I pulled from online. So drop shadow. This did take a long time to do. I'll show you what it looks like. But generally, we have this clown. We've got the same object at the back. So this was not recreated, the shadow. It's the same thing. The only thing that's happened, if we look at our example, so I'll just put that aside. So if we come back, if we look at this, this has just been skewed. That's all that happened. It was just skewed. So if we go to the end, you know, it's also been skewed. And if we flip it behind it, it'll give you the impression that it is a shadow. Now just have a look at that, the way some of you may be curious, what does that FLA file look like? So if we open it, so here we have the main symbol. Remember, we can move it. Then we have the shadow. All that was done was you copy it and you paste it on a separate layer, and then you have a blur effect along with a knockout. A knockout basically, the hide object will hide it and just give it the gray. The blur will actually allow you to create the shadow that you're looking for. So hide object allows you to hide the object. So if we double click on this, or even double click on the shadow, they're both the same. So what we see here is this is a classic tween. This is done in an older version of Flash, but you could see it's taken a fair bit of time, and the bone tool was not available then. Okay, so yes, it took a long time. That's a lot of frames. So 525 frames. But it's a nice, decent animation. So that's how you would generally introduce shadows into your animation. You know, what I could have done was I could have had the alien in a spaceship. So if I was to get rid of, say, the shadow, let's just get rid of this particular layer. So I'm just going to get rid of the background, and I'm going to create a simple spaceship. And let's say it's this color. Okay, then I'm going to have an oval. And it doesn't look great, but let's go with it. So I'm going to change it around a bit. Okay, so we kind of have a spaceship. So let's say spaceship. And then within that I could have another layer if I wanted. Say capsule. And this would be a circle. It would be kind of a white. I'll just stick with that for the time being. And I could chop it off in between, say around there. So now I could have my alien within that if I wanted to. So I'm going to remove the tween. So generally what you would do is I would select all this. Everything would need to be in one symbol. So if you do come by and you've created something now, you think, geez, I want my alien to be in the spaceship. Now how do I control my spaceship? So what I would do is I would select everything for the spaceship, and I would convert that to a symbol, which would be spaceship. Okay, merges it onto one layer. Now I would select, and I could copy, and I can go into my spaceship symbol, and I can see paste. I could paste it in there. Now get rid of that. So now I have this all in one symbol, and if we play it, everything's still working fine. So I'm just going to get rid of the face because it's part of the other symbol. Now I'm going to move this face within the spaceship. So I'm going to call this face, spaceship, and I'm just going to move that out. So I've just taken a big sort of chunk, and now I'm going to move this face but behind the area in the spaceship. So I'm going to free transform to resize it. And of course I could have done better on my alien. Now I have a spaceship and I have an alien within that. You know, you could have it sort of head popping or doing all kinds of things. And now what we can do is we can actually have the spaceship tween. So we could say create motion tween, or remember we could have it follow a particular path. So I'm just going to do create motion tween, and I'm going to sort of start off somewhere down here. Sorry, let's start off somewhere here. And I'd say, you know, it comes out. And then right at the last stage, I want to have a stop. Insert keyframe, F9 for stop. Remember the action script. Now if we need to save this file, save as. Now I'll call it spaceship. Now if we play it, so you could see two different independent sort of animations there. And the alien still keeps blinking when it sort of comes towards you. So if you do come into issues like that, you know, where you've created two different animations, now you want to merge them, you can still copy and paste them. You can still do that. So you're not limited in that sense. So I could still add the background. I could add other boosters in there. You know, I could do all kinds of things. You know, I could have a shadow now below that if I want to. See, currently we did not have a shadow, so I could introduce a shadow.